Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
There is an old tale, repeated in sermons, whispered in corners of ancient cathedrals, and preached from the fiery pulpits of Western churches. It begins in heaven and ends in fire. A brilliant angel named Lucifer, prideful and defiant, led a rebellion against God and was cast down into hell. Over centuries, the name Lucifer became a shorthand for the devil himself. This figure of cosmic betrayal and darkness has haunted Christian doctrine for nearly 2 millennia. But not every tradition agrees. In the highlands of Ethiopia, preserved in an unbroken Christian tradition older than the canon of Rome, a different story survives, a story that shakes the very roots of what we think we know about Lucifer, the devil, and the forces of rebellion. In the West, Lucifer has been heavily conflated with Satan due to a long history of mistranslations, interpretive overlays, and theological decisions by imperial councils. But in the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, one of the oldest Christian institutions on earth, rooted in Semitic, Hebraic, and African traditions, the ancient Guizi scriptures offer a different cosmic blueprint. According to Ethiopia's sacred texts, Lucifer is not a simple stand-in for the devil. He is a being with a complex purpose, a tragic origin, and a fall that had deeper consequences than merely being punished for pride. The distinction between Lucifer and Satan is crucial, and in Ethiopian theology, they are not the same entity. To understand why Ethiopia holds such a dramatically different view of Lucifer, one must travel back in time to a place where Christianity was not Roman, but African. While the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD standardized Christianity in the West under imperial Roman authority, Ethiopia had already received the gospel decades earlier through the evangelism of Philip to the Ethiopian eunuch, Acts 8 verses 27 to 39. Ethiopia's Christian development did not pass through Latin or Greek filters. It unfolded through Semitic languages, Hebrew influences, and local traditions, giving it a biblical and extra-biblical record largely untouched by Roman theological editing. The Guizi Bible, still preserved in Ethiopia today, includes several books that were excluded or altered in the Western canon. Among them, texts like 1 Enoch, Jubilees, the Book of Baruch, and the Ascension of Isaiah, which contain some of the most detailed angelological and demonological frameworks found anywhere in the ancient world. In these Ethiopian writings, Lucifer is often associated not with Satan, but with a different cosmic being, a morning star or bearer of light, whose fall was not simply a rebellion, but a disruption of divine order due to celestial envy and spiritual tragedy. The famous passage in Isaiah 14 verse 12, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning," was originally a taunt against the Babylonian king, not a theological definition of the devil. The term Lucifer, meaning light-bearer in Latin, does not even exist in the original Hebrew. The Ethiopian texts clarify this, maintaining fidelity to the original Semitic idioms. Lucifer's fall in this context is less about moral evil and more about cosmic imbalance. He is mourned, not merely cursed. The Guizi texts are more explicit when it comes to the figure we know as Satan, a name that appears as Satan or Satanael in Ethiopian writings. This being is far older and more sinister than the fallen morning star. In the Book of the Mysteries of Heaven and Earth, an apocryphal Ethiopian work, Satan is described not simply as a rebellious angel, but as a pre-Adamic force of chaos existing before the foundation of man. He is not the jealous prince of heaven who wanted God's throne, but rather a saboteur of divine order, one who attempts to remake creation in his own twisted image. The Ethiopian tradition does not equate this ancient evil with a light-bearing angel. Rather, Lucifer's fall is recorded as a tragic consequence of misunderstanding, pride, and misdirection, whereas Satan's actions are born of destruction and perversion. One of the most vivid explanations of this can be found in the Ethiopian Book of Enoch, 1 Enoch, which predates the Roman Church's canonization by centuries. This book introduces the Watchers, a group of 200 angels led by Samjaza and Azazel, who descended to earth and corrupted humankind by sharing forbidden knowledge. This angelic rebellion is distinct from Lucifer's fall. The Watchers, not Lucifer, are the ones who are imprisoned under the earth, bound for judgment. The Guizi Enoch describes these angels as having brought war, sorcery, vanity, and violence into the world. Nowhere does it claim that Lucifer was among them. In contrast, the Book of Baruch, preserved only in full form in Ethiopia, reveals that Lucifer was tasked with guarding the threshold of the seventh heaven where the divine throne resided. He was given light, not to hoard it, but to transmit it. When Lucifer grew confused by the rising honor of Adam and the command to bow to man, he questioned divine logic, not out of hatred, but out of misunderstanding. In Ethiopian tradition, Lucifer's fall was a lesson to the angels about divine humility. He was not cast out as a demon, but became a wandering spirit of regret, still luminous, but no longer divine. This interpretation is far more nuanced than the fiery damnation often preached in Western pulpits. The split between Lucifer and Satan, as preserved in Ethiopian Christianity, can also be seen in how these figures relate to humanity. Satan is the accuser, the tempter, the seducer of Eve, the one who caused Cain to slay Abel. But Lucifer is portrayed in some texts as having once loved creation, especially music and worship. The Book of the Rolls, another Ethiopic apocryphal manuscript, recounts that Lucifer was the chief of heavenly music, and his fall led to a cosmic silence in heaven that was only restored when the Son of God came to earth. Interestingly, Ethiopia also preserves writings that speak of a redemption arc for Lucifer. In one rare homily attributed to the ancient monks of Lake Tana, it is said that in the last days, the sorrow of Lucifer will be weighed against his original purpose, and the Almighty may restore his brightness, not as an archangel, but as a servant. This concept, radical and theologically shocking to Western ears, shows how Ethiopian Christianity views the cosmos not as black and white, but as a tapestry of divine justice, time, and mystery. This theological gap between Lucifer and Satan is not limited to Ethiopia alone. Earlier church fathers such as Origen, Tertullian, and even Clement of Alexandria hinted at this distinction, though their writings were later condemned or buried under Roman orthodoxy. But Ethiopia, isolated from the empire's theological rewriting, never abandoned these distinctions. Its monks continued copying the ancient Guizi scrolls, safeguarding a spiritual history nearly erased elsewhere. Why does this matter today? Because if Lucifer is not the devil, then much of modern Christian demonology and eschatology must be reconsidered. It raises deep questions about divine justice, human freedom, and the nature of rebellion. It also reminds us that Africa, especially Ethiopia, is not a passive receiver of Christian doctrine, but one of its original guardians, interpreters, and innovators. Long before European missionaries arrived, Ethiopia had already produced rich, mystical interpretations of the Bible that rivaled anything written in Rome, Constantinople, or Geneva. In the final analysis, Ethiopia's Bible reminds us that the spiritual war described in Scripture is not always between light and darkness, but often between different kinds of light, some faithful, some fallen, and some struggling to return. Lucifer, as envisioned in the Guizi canon, is not the devil, but a shadowed angel, wounded, complex, and still echoing through the heavens he once adorned.